Welcome to Why to Apply and How to Win 43 North. My name is Lauren Baines. I'm Vice President of Portfolio and Selection for 43 North. And what you can expect today is some information from folks who have already won 43 North, some of our current portfolio companies, as well as from our selection team, Brian Straka, who is a panelist here today as well, and myself on what the application process is like, how to perform well in our application process, and why you should even consider applying in the first place. So with that, I'm going to actually start by introducing our esteemed panelists, who also happen to be winners of 43 North. And we'll start with you, Liz. Why don't you kick us off, introduce yourself, and let everyone know who you are.
Hey everyone, I'm Liz. I'm CEO of High Operator, and we automate customer service. So I'm originally from Texas, although lived overseas for a bit, and we actually applied to 43 North when we were based in New York City. We've been here for about a year and a half now. We were one of the year 5 winners, and I'm one of the follow-on winners from last year as well. And we've been really enjoying it in Buffalo. It's been an exciting year and a half of growth.
Thanks so much, Liz. Ofo, why don't you go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Ofo. I'm CEO and founder of Who's Your Landlord, WYL.co. Our whole premise is on empowering and informing the rental community through landlord reviews, housing literacy content, and subscription SaaS software for real estate developers to better engage their residents. I coming from Brooklyn, New York, and made my way to Buffalo, New York. Lived there for a few years as a kid. My parents actually met at Niagara University, so kind of a homecoming for me to a certain extent. And Buffalo's made a lot of sense for us in terms of growing our business. We're brand spanking new. This year obviously has been a little different, but I've applied to the program several times for our business, so I can speak from a unique vantage point of many different things. So pleasure to be here today.
Thanks so much, Ofo. Joe, that leaves us with you if you're comfortable and able to.
I'm comfortable. Hopefully you can see me. I am in the car, so I apologize for that. I'll be out of the car in 2 minutes, I swear. I'm Joe Neiman. I'm one of the founders of a company called ACV Auctions, and we were the winner in 2015. I'm not a Buffalo native, but I did go to University of Buffalo, so fair bit of familiarity here. And now Buffalo is definitely home. Yeah, I mean, without going too far into it, we are a marketplace platform for car dealers to buy and sell cars on. And we've had a lot of luck and growth, and 43 North's been a key part of that in the past 5 years.
Joe's being very, very humble. Maybe talk about where ACV is today.
Sure, if you want to get right into it. ACV, let's see, to put it in perspective, we have we've raised a couple $100 million. We are still Buffalo based, which is fantastic. We have over 1,300 teammates now, and really like experiencing 200% year-over-year growth for the past couple of years. So it is that story that we all hope for. We have achieved a unicorn status with our last round of finance, which was, they all blend together, but sometime late last year, I believe. So things are really great. We sell over 30,000 cars a month. So things are going really well, and we're expanding and adding teammates, and it's really hard behind the scenes, but it's well worth it. So is that is that some good color and context? I don't want to steal the show here by any means.
That helps set the stage a little bit, Joe, on the
No
perspective that you
problem.
can share throughout this webinar.
Yeah, great.
So who we are, and I should remind everyone, throughout the webinar, we are going to be taking questions from anyone who's attending. There is a Q&A feature on Zoom if you haven't been using Zoom every day like we have for the past 3 or 4 months. Get comfortable with it. And Brian from our team will be handling the Q&A portion in just a little bit. So we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Anything that we miss, we are happy to follow up with you guys via email, and I'll share that at the end of the presentation. So who is 43 North? If you're not familiar with us, we are a global startup competition and accelerator program. We invest $5 million annually into wonderful startup companies from anywhere across the globe. Typically, that's about 8 investments each year. And what's exciting about that is one of our investments will be $1 million winner, and the other 7 are typically about $500,000. We have 51 companies in our portfolio, and we've invited just a snapshot here to talk to you today. And we have a really diverse portfolio as well. So 23% of our portfolio companies are led by women founders, and 31% are founders of color. Our portfolio has gone on to raise $472 million in venture capital after winning our competition. And that doesn't count grants and government opportunities, which have also been quite significant, somewhere around 40 million. So our companies have been doing really well, and doing well in a city that probably doesn't have a great reputation in terms of a technology hub. But we're here today to talk to you about why maybe you should be thinking about moving to Buffalo. So what we look for in our application process, and I should remind you that our application will be opening up at some point this summer, within the next couple of weeks. So we look for a very strong team. Like most venture capitalists, like most investors, we're betting on the jockey often over the horse. So we're looking for a great founder with domain expertise, a great leader, someone who just attracts a great team to him or her. We're looking for traction. So typically our companies do have revenue. We have invested in pre-revenue companies, but typically those are deep tech or more complex products where just getting the product to market was kind of that first step. Typically on the revenue side, we're looking at 100K to 500K annually is where most of our winners end up being when they win our competition. The product should be deployable. We're not here to help build products. We're here to help build teams and build sales revenue, build out a business process. But the product at the point of our investment typically is pretty much buttoned up. Obviously, there's always going to be iterations and changes, but for the most part, we're looking for a shippable, deployable product. And then here's the most important and I think most unique factor of what 43North is looking for, and that is a synergy with Buffalo. And what does that mean? Well, there should be some interesting opportunity for your company as to why you would be willing to move to Buffalo. That might be talent, that might be the location, that might be you're just looking for an East Coast hub. There's a variety of reasons, and we'll talk a little bit about what Buffalo's strengths are and why some of your companies might actually be really well suited for this region. So what we offer, so in addition to the investment, which is really significant, we offer Class A office space. You can see it right behind me and behind Brian. Beautiful waterfront views in downtown Buffalo looking over Lake Erie for free. We offer mentorship, one-on-one mentors through both our program, and then we also have a linkage to Techstars. So a linkage to Techstars' global network of mentors as well. But there are some fantastic Buffalo-based mentors that some of our companies can talk about as well. Support on recruiting, marketing, and fundraising. Our team kind of functions as a team for you. So we have a head of recruiting and talent. We have a head of marketing with years and years of experience. And we have a investor relations person, Brian, who's right below me in the screen, who helps our companies raise money and connects them to the over 500 investors in our network. So I'll kind of kick this off to Liz. Maybe you could tell the folks listening today, what were the key areas that 43North was able to help your company when you won 43North?
Sure. So I think 43North kind of undersells themselves when they call themselves an accelerator, because for us, they were really much more of like a partner, right? So, I mean, Buffalo was great. We really loved what we heard about it, but we didn't have any real Buffalo connections. So 43North for us was a way where we could come and we had sort of a soft landing of connections, whether that was hiring, whether that was mentors, growth, all of that. But specifically for us, we were at a point where we needed to hire and grow pretty quickly by the time we got to Buffalo. And 43North was great at connecting with us with mentors who specifically had expertise in the parts of operations that we were looking to grow. But beyond that, I mean, mentors are really great, and High Operator would not exist if not for some of the amazing people who have mentored us. But sometimes as a startup, you just need someone who's going to do things for you. Right. And so 43North was really great in that if we needed help with recruiting, they wouldn't just give us advice. They had people on staff who would sit there and just help us recruit. Right. If we needed promo materials, we needed marketing, they would really just get in hands on and just sit with us and do it with us and for us. And that to us was a really invaluable part of allowing us to grow in Buffalo over the past year.
Thanks, Liz. So that kind of brings us to our next point as to why Buffalo? Why was this program created in the city of Buffalo? Well, a lot of different reasons, but essentially there's a couple of key areas where Buffalo could actually be really of a significant help to your company. We're within 500 miles of 40% of the continental North American population. This is big when it comes to logistics. So if you're a consumer products company, if you need to move things around, Buffalo has water access, rail access, and a number of third-party logistics companies that can help you with warehousing in a much more affordable way than you would see on the West Coast. And we've had companies who have saved millions of dollars on shipping just from relocating their warehousing operations to Buffalo. We're a 1-hour flight from New York City, Boston, Chicago, Philly. It's closer than you would think, although we're not a 1-hour drive from New York City, which some people think. We're not quite that close, but it is a quick flight away. And so our companies that do need to meet with investors or customers on the East Coast, Buffalo's a great hub. We also have 21 colleges and universities. The talent pool here is fantastic and it's affordable. And I think Liz can probably highlight some of the success that they've had hiring local Buffalo folks. But you're going to end up getting a really strong customer service team here, sales team, in a much more affordable fashion than you would on either coast, both in New York City or San Francisco or some of the large cities in between. Actually, I'm going to go back one slide and I'm going to kick it to Ofo to tell us a little bit about, so Ofo is one of our most recent portfolio companies and he won and moved to Buffalo this year in the midst of a pandemic, which has certainly presented some new challenges. And Ofo, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what that move to Buffalo was like, what your thoughts are on Buffalo and how it's been since the pandemic started.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I started off in Brooklyn, New York, which many of you can imagine or have seen. Everything shut down and became pretty chaotic when COVID hit. So this actually was a super blessing in disguise. Of course, one piece of it is the investment and the opportunity to be in Buffalo. The second piece was the opportunity to be in Buffalo. Literally got us out of Brooklyn, so we could be safer during COVID. So I spent the last 3 months straight have been, for the most part, as I'm sure many of you can attest to, in my apartment in Buffalo, New York. But what's been great about that is the weekends, Buffalo's pretty expansive and it's easy to get out of the city and be in whether it's local towns, hiking. Niagara Falls is not far either. So from a peaceful standpoint, I'll start there first. From a mental health and peace standpoint, Buffalo has been super helpful regarding that. And also too, it helps that it didn't completely shut down the same way New York City did because it's again more expansive and it's not as many people. So as a result, I could still live a pretty normal life. My cooking game increased while I was there as well. And so on and so forth. From the company's perspective, we had to adapt to being more remote. We've always been kind of a hybrid company where, half of us are in person, half of us are remote, more on the dev side. Transitioning to being mostly remote wasn't too difficult, but it did mean then using more software tools and whatnot to keep us all connected. 43North has been super helpful with that because we've still been able to make connections, even if we've been mostly doing it through Zoom like this. So whether it's Brian helping us through our current fundraise right now, we've been hitting the pavement the last 3 weeks. weeks. And a lot of those intros have come from Brian, or whether it's simple things like even care packages to make sure our team is okay in our homes and in our apartments. 43 North and Sophie has been all over that. And then connections with the city too. So some I won't disclose yet because and Lauren's privy to these, we're working on them, but we've been able to connect with the mayor of Buffalo, the city at large, to do some cool projects with, and we've still been able to connect with potential customers too. So we haven't slowed down at all. We've been really heads down working, and Buffalo's been super helpful in making that happen.
Thanks, Ofo. And Joe, maybe you could talk a little bit about why Buffalo works as, I think it's probably the largest base of employees that ACV has still. Tell us about why that works and what kind of talent you've been able to recruit here.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great place to start. So Buffalo has a lot of talent. We have a lot of banks. We've got a lot of software people, actually. University of Buffalo, as well as Waterloo, just across the border in Canada, are some of the top tech schools in the country, even though people don't know that. So from a computer programming standpoint, if we can build the awareness about ACV early enough in some of these students' life cycle, then they're not skipping town and moving to Silicon Valley or New York, and we've been able to recruit talent that way, which has worked really, really well. We run a big call center. Buffalo's home to some giant call centers, and this is going to sound like a silly plug, but it's really true. Buffalo's a city of good neighbors. There's just good people here. There's good energy here. It functions more like or feels more like a Midwestern town or a Midwest town than it does East Coast. And so we're kind of like right on the fringe. We are close to all of the East Coast. Like you said, it's a 50-minute flight to New York. I can be in Manhattan by 9 a.m. No problem. I've done it 50 times. But it's really nice to come home to Buffalo. There's encouragement here. 43 North is a huge part of that. But just culturally, this is a city that it's certainly had its challenges in the past, and everybody wants to see Buffalo win. And we're really starting to now. We've already started in a big way, but this town's making a major comeback, and everybody's excited about that. So you just start to, it kind of runs off its own momentum almost, or inertia. There's just an excitement in the air, and we get that with all of our employees. People want to be part of a winning team, and they want to see a win for Buffalo.
Thanks, Joe. So if you haven't thought about moving your company to Buffalo, maybe these 2 or 3 folks could start to convince you. So next I want to talk about some of the traction that our companies have made since winning 43 North. And Joe's a great example of that at ACV Auctions, one of our first unicorns in Buffalo, certainly 43 North's first unicorn. There is a way to raise significant capital out of a city like Buffalo, and our companies have shown that they can do that. Most recently, one of our companies, Squire, just closed their Series B, a pretty significant Series B, $34 million. And they have their operations based here in Buffalo. So you can do it. You don't need to be in Silicon Valley to raise money. You don't need to be in Silicon Valley to grow your company. And we really think Buffalo is a great place to do that. And we can help you get there. So next I'm going to move into what the judging process is like. So if you're considering applying to 43 North, the next kind of 10 minutes or so is just going to be about, well, how do you win? How do you do well in our competition? And what does that process look like, and how intense is it? So the timeline that we've laid out here is that we'll be launching the application in summer of 2020. There's 3 rounds of judging, and if you've been a part of 43 North before, which I know some of the participants here have applied before, it's pretty rigorous. So it's a 70-question application that is reviewed by 3 different judges. We then have a video pitch round that about 100 people get invited to. That's where you pitch to 5 investors or mentors from our network. If you make it past that round, we go into due diligence. And that's going to mirror a lot of the due diligence process you'd see from, I'll say, probably a seed investor or Series A investor. So not only Are we making sure that we're making strong investments? We're helping our companies kind of prepare for that process, which most of our companies come to us before raising that Series A. So getting that data room together, getting your financials and your forecasting ready to go is really important in our process too. Finals will be sometime in early December this year. It will not be 3,000 people in one room as we normally do because of COVID. So we're looking at doing something on TV this year. So also a great opportunity to bring exposure to your company. Typically our finals also includes about 100 VCs that we fly into Buffalo for that event. So that's also great exposure, but this year we anticipate it being even more people because we'll be doing it either virtually or on TV. And then when do you move to Buffalo? That's going to be February of 2021. So we do require relocation of our companies from wherever they are to the city of Buffalo. And we help you through that process. We provide a lot of assistance and help finding and identifying where to live and what to do for fun. Oop. Sorry about that. So how do you apply successfully? So in these 70 questions or so, the judges are looking for something specific. We're looking for directness. We'd like you to be concise. If you can't explain your company in 50 words, that's not a good sign. It makes it really difficult for the judges to understand what you're doing. And then it makes it even harder for us to understand how customers value your product. It's important to explain why your founding team is great. Tell us about your background. What makes you special? What special expertise do you have that makes you well suited to run that team or to sell that product or to create that product? Tell us about your competition. Be upfront. We respect it a lot more. And it makes us less fearful that you're not aware of your competition. We've all seen startup companies that are like, aren't 10 other people doing that exact thing? Be upfront and tell us about those 10 other people and why you specifically are so different. One of the big things we see with our application are numbers not matching up. So we'll ask you how much money you've raised a couple of different ways. And when those numbers don't match up, it starts to make us worry that maybe either you don't know your numbers or you're not able to kind of explain them in a way that's accurate, which isn't a great sign. So make sure you're checking your numbers. Make sure you know how much money you've raised from every source. These are important things, and they'll become even more important through the diligence process, and I imagine much more important in the diligence process that you guys might be facing when you go to raise a significant financing round. Show you're in it to win it. The best applications for 43 North are folks that have researched Buffalo, have researched why they're a fit, who are passionate, who show, we have a video component of our application. We're looking for that passion from founders. We're looking for founders with a lot of grit. Moving to Buffalo, picking up and moving your families and your team is not easy, and we know that. So we're looking for really strong founders that can show us that they're in it for the right reasons and want to do this. Now, Ofo, you've applied a couple of times to 43 North, so I'm going to pick on you a little bit to tell us, how did that process look like? What did that process look like for you applying? And why do you think you were successful kind of the second or third time around?
Yeah, probably a few times. We've been successful, I think, in this process because I don't take, I guess I don't take no's or rejection too seriously in terms of, you take the feedback, you correct, you have a year to do it, and then you come back. For us, as having been in operations over the last few years, I think every time we came back, we got literally further in the process. And then last year we saw a lot of progress, and it made sense for the 43 North team to move forward here and for us to move forward here. So, it's those age-old adages of like persistence is key. But also I think, our story also got better over that time period as well. We were better at telling the story of our business. In the beginning, when it's just like literally you just release a product, you don't have much traction to then you should be able to go very deep in the product and why this investment is going to help advance your product. If it's the second time around and okay, now you're gaining some traction in the market, it's, well, how are you going to sell this product the right way? And so I think now we've seen our product grow from a front end consumer platform, and people liking us to like a Yelp for landlords on the front end, to also having this B2B bucket where we can take a lot of that data and then be able to sell that as well when it comes to more enterprise style clients. So being able to articulate that story and that growth mattered as to why we're part of 43 North family now. And so I would just say, don't be discouraged if this year isn't the year for you.
Absolutely. And we see that every year. Ofo is certainly not the first founder to have applied a couple of times before winning the competition. Liz, you're a very dynamic pitcher. Tell us a little bit about your experience applying for 43 North, pitching on stage, and what you think makes a successful applicant.
So this is something that I learned sort of along my startup journey, is that when you pitch, you should not be saying what you want to say. You should be telling people what they need to know about you in the shortest amount of time possible to understand what you're all about. And one thing I realized was what I'm most excited about is not necessarily what comes across and helps someone else understand what the company is all about. That was one. The other thing is I'm actually terrified of public speaking. Like there's a very long list of things I would rather do than speak publicly in any way, shape, or form. And so for me, 43 North, knowing that that was a very different venue than what I was used to speaking at, it was for us, literally thousands of people, it's a little bit terrifying, right? So for me, it was finding what worked. And I don't know if I should share this, but specifically, I memorize. It is better if I memorize it 10,001 times. And I actually took my script up with me. I don't know if I looked at it very much, but just that was what helped me sort of get over the hump. And, so the combination of those two things, really workshopping what I thought would communicate as well, and then just memorizing it over and over really, really helped.
And if I could add something there too. So Liz actually was basically my steward and mentor in the process of pitching. So, 43 North also, it is a family, and they make the connections to ensure that you're as prepared as possible. So the first leg is on you to figure out how to get to that point. But, you can rest assured that once you're in that space or that sphere, you will get supported as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. We provide a mentor to each of our candidates at our finals event to make sure that they're presenting as best as possible. And I think it's like a full day long mentorship session that everyone gets to participate in. So a lot of learning to be had. Next, I want to kick it to Joe just to share any advice that you have for founders today. It's a very difficult environment to be an entrepreneur in the midst of a pandemic and a crisis. But I also think, as founders are considering new opportunities for capital like 43 North, what advice would you give them?
Sure. So to start, I would say, yes, it's a difficult time. Mark my words, there will be so many unbelievable opportunities, right? Change and volatility create opportunities. You just have to be on the right side of that. So I won't say I love COVID, okay? Because I don't love COVID, but I love the volatility and the fact that it really actually made our company so much stronger because we were agile, we were nimble, we are truly an online platform, and we came out of this thing, or coming out of this thing, magnitudes stronger from a market share perspective. So it's kind of like it ripped the rug out from under our incumbent competition, right? And we've been better positioned for it. And what I would say is pressure test your company against COVID type things. I am not a fearful guy by any means. I'm really like an eternal optimist as much as anybody. But I think the world we live in, we're going to see more things like this happen, and we're just going to need to adjust, right? That doesn't mean go and hide in your basement. That means build a company that's robust enough and agile enough and lean enough to go through these sort of things and come out the other side. So I always believed ACV could withstand and persevere economic gyrations, and we've proven to. So that's been really, really, really great. I would say on the pitching and preparation, ACV was in its infancy when we started, but I just did some quick calculations. I'll always remember this when I was on stage. And I also memorized, I don't think I brought my script up, but I was up till like 2 a.m. going through slide by slide, nailing my bullet points, which is, it's not my way. But I forced myself. This is a big opportunity. You get this once in your life. Make the most of it, right? Don't half-ass this. This is a big deal. But to put it in perspective, when we stood on stage, we'd been commercially operational in one market in Buffalo for like 3 months and had about 650 cars sold. And that put us on, I was just back of the envelope math, we were bringing in about $80,000 in top line revenue a month. And timing is everything, and luck is a big part of this. We nailed it from a timing perspective, meaning we were able to stand on stage and say confidently, like, basically the numbers don't lie. I mean, sure, we're tiny right now, at that point in time, selling 650 cars across 3 months. We'll sell 2,300 cars today alone. But at that point in time, it was the right time to be having this kind of like business plan competition, pre-Series A type conversation. Like, look, it's real. We've got a business. There is product market fit. There is traction. We have some customers. People are trusting us to transact cars on our online platform. And anywhere you can tell that story, because what judges and what venture capitalists and any investor are going to do for your entire career is they're going to try and poke holes in what it is that you're saying. It's their job. And if you can like, the numbers don't lie. If you can show real traction, it kind of quiets that voice. So again, we got lucky. I've been rejected countless times for investments. And, that's just part of it. As much as Lauren outlined the diligence and the prep and the 70 question, survey that you have to fill out to even kind of like get in the game here to have the chance, mark my words, that's the easiest diligence you will ever do in your career of being an entrepreneur who's looking to raise institutional money. It's the fun stories where they go and tell you that, Airbnb raised whatever off of a 5-page slide deck and the money was in the bank the next day. They're just not true. So you've got to work hard for it. These are big opportunities, and you got to take it really seriously. And it's well worth it if you do.
So Joe, if I hear you correctly, are you saying that the 70 questions and the multiple pitches were worth the $1 million prize? Hands
down, all day, every day, yes.
Great, thank you.
Yes. Sorry for not being clear enough on that. Yes, and yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing, guys. So I want to move into Q&A. And so some of these questions are going to be better suited for our panelists or for the 43North team. So I'll have Brian kind of moderate some of the questions that have come in from our participants. So go ahead, Brian.
Sure. So one of them is from Jen. Does 43North contact applicants at the end of each round to let them know whether they've made it to the next round? Also, is this the time when additional information is requested by 43North? So yeah, Lauren, if you could sort of talk through what does that process look like in terms of moving from one round to the next, and then what additional information is required?
Yeah, great question. So after round one, we do request additional information. So after that kind of 70 question application, we'll request financials from you. So that would be your 3-year forecast. That would be usually last year's P&L, just to get a better snapshot into what the financial situation is looking like and to verify the revenue numbers that you put in the application. And when I was talking about being accurate with your numbers, this is why it's so important, because a huge red flag for us would be if the revenue numbers you put in the application differ greatly from when we take a look at that P&L, or they just don't make sense. Like your revenue was significantly higher 2 years ago and now it's really low. These are things that tend to be red flags and reasons why judges might just not move you on to the next round, because if we're that confused by the numbers, we might just look at move to another candidate. After each round, you'll hear from us requesting that info. after semifinals, which is that pitch round, we move into diligence. So that's when we do request additional information as well. That's when we'll request some references from you. We do a background check. This is a state-funded program, so we're required to do a background check, so we'll get sign-off on that. And we'll talk through what our investment actually means from a terms and conditions standpoint and get sign-off on our terms. So yes, you do hear from us at each round. I would say you hear from us quite a bit throughout the process. And we try to provide feedback. This is something new we started last year, actually providing feedback for the companies that aren't moving on as to why they are not moving on. It was difficult to implement because we do get hundreds and hundreds of applicants, but we do try to give each and every one of them some kind of explanation as to why they weren't considered for the next round.
Great, thank you. We have a good amount of questions for Lauren specifically, so I encourage anybody, if they have any questions for the founders, please feel free to add them to there. Lauren, for someone that's in deep tech space, they're backed by patents. How much are patents valued in the selection process, or for that matter, not valued?
They're included in our diligence. So we have an IP attorney take a look at patents, copyrights, any kind of intellectual property, and it is scored and part of the judges' criteria that they'll be judging you upon in finals. So we don't look at the patents before that. We do want to make sure that that you own the patents, that you own the intellectual property that makes your company valuable. With that being said, though, a lot of companies do not really have a lot of IP, and that's okay too. Software companies, for example, there's a lot of examples of successful companies where the IP is not a very critical component into the investment decision we're making. In deep tech, it absolutely, I'm sure, would be. Right.
So if you have a distributed or digital team, who relocates? Is it just the CEO, or how does that work?
So our award agreement is very specific on this, and the CEO plus half of your team has to relocate to Buffalo. So if they are remote, there might be a chance where individuals would have to move. It's not as though we just don't count remote workers. They are a part of the calculation.
Thank you. What qualities did 43North see in the pre-revenue companies that ended up winning that made them stick out?
Great question. A lot of times that is the technology. So if the technology took years to create because it is so complex, I'll give a couple of examples. One is a company called SparkCharge that makes a portable charger for electric vehicles. Really complex technology, certainly was pre-revenue before coming into 43North. And they actually ended up being our $1 million winner. And what the judges liked about that company was, it's a big idea, a big, bold idea, bold technology. And, if it works, it was going to be a huge opportunity. And if it didn't, this is the risk that we as investors take. So I think on the pre-revenue companies, those big, bold, deep tech, complex technology that took years to develop, or special expertise that nobody else has, or something along those lines, are ways to really stand out. Another example was a company, they weren't quite pre-revenue, they had some customer traction, and this is an important piece here, is that customer traction that you have before you even have revenue. And they made a really complicated but beautiful video game that teaches students the science standards. And so they had a ton of proof points throughout their pilots with teachers and students about how valuable this piece of technology was. And it took them years to create. It was really complicated in terms of all of the pedagogy that was involved. So I would say, there's not a ton of companies that win pre-revenue, but when we do see all of those components, we're able to maybe feel it's worth the risk. Hopefully that answers the question.
Got it. This question is for Joe. It could very likely be also replicated for Liz, but what has your experience in recruiting technical talent been like here in Buffalo? Does Buffalo have a strong talent pool for tech roles? And then even just adding on to that, just Liz, at the rate at which you've hired, if you could talk to that as well, that'd be great.
You want me to take that first, Brian?
Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. So I would say there is a lot of tech talent in Buffalo. we've done well. I was very fortunate to have a co-founder who was he was our CTO. He still is our CTO, and he's very well networked. He's plugged into the universities. That's helped create pipelines for talent. The other thing we've seen that's been interesting and exciting and follows along the same path of really 43 North's premise, which is that people are willing to relocate here. The cost of living is extremely reasonable. You get 4 nice seasons. It's not the same grind or cost that it is to live in Silicon Valley or Seattle or New York or Boston. So there's expats that come back that, started in Buffalo, grew up in Buffalo, and moved to go and chase dreams working at Google and Facebook and Pixar. And we've hired those people, and they've moved back to Buffalo because it's like a homecoming for them, as well as other people that just really want to try out living in a more normalized, mellow pace for life, a more balanced approach. So we've been able to bring people to this area. That's been great. And when you can have half your staff working remotely too, then that's allows you to be able to plug in and leverage specialized talent if it doesn't exist here.
Great. And then Liz, I know you're going to jump in. We actually have a question specifically for you, so this works out. It said, Liz, how quickly were you able to build out your team? You had mentioned that 43 North was good at assisting you with that, and has it been easier the longer you've been in Buffalo?
Yes. So I think when we moved here, we had this theory that Buffalo would be really great to hire operational talent in, and that has been true. But what we found is that you can hire for pretty much every role within Buffalo. But Buffalo is kind of a city that gets better the longer you get to know it. So for us, having 43 North sort of help us broker into the community and get to know people and know these populations, whether that's developers or salespeople, was really valuable. I will say that before this, we were in San Francisco and New York City. Buffalo's job market is a little bit different maybe in that people stick with companies a little bit longer. Whereas in San Francisco, everyone's on the I'm here for one or 2 years and I'm on to my next opportunity. So there's a lot, you can post a job and you have a lot of people who are just naturally looking. In Buffalo, the talent is there. You just need to go dig for it a little bit more. And that's where I think 43 North is really, really helpful for us, was in uncovering that talent that we needed to hire. And I'll say the other bit is, as soon as we found out we were moving to Buffalo, all these like Buffalonians in New York City started like coming out of the woodwork. We knew a surprising number of people who were working in tech companies in San Francisco and New York City that I had no idea were from Buffalo. I just saw my husband on Buffalo, for example, and he went, and he's a data scientist, built a model of housing prices and said, yes, I am 101% in. The standard of living here is going to be incredible. So there are a lot of, I think, hidden attributes of Buffalo that make it really easy to sell in that sense. And the other thing is, there are a lot of people in Buffalo who work remotely for some of the country's largest tech companies. And so if you can get in and use 43 North as that bridge, there's a lot of talent that you're able to find in Buffalo that you wouldn't necessarily expect.
Got it. Thank you. We have probably just a couple more minutes for questions here. I can take 2 of these myself just to check them off. 1, can local companies apply? And 2, how many participants are in each round? So yes, local companies can apply. We've had a number of Buffalo companies win in our competition over the last few years. So you're in good company there. And then also, in terms of how many participants are in each round, there's not an exact amount, but typically we get 500 to 600 applicants applying each year. A subset of those advance to our semifinals, which is the video pitch online followed by Q&A. That can range anywhere from 100 up to 130, 140 or so. Then we break it down a little bit further from there on the ones that we do diligence on, where we net out at finals. We'll have 16 and 20 companies pitch, from which we'll determine which 8 we're going to invest in. So it whittles on down quite a bit each round. We do more diligence, more judging on each of them, and that contributes to it. That's that. Lauren, in terms of the companies that are here beyond the set amount of time that they're supposed to, could you talk about a little bit the retention of the companies that we've seen over the last couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this has been kind of weaved throughout the presentation, but I'm not sure that we've been explicit here. But 43 North does require its winners to move to Buffalo for 1 year. So there's actually an agreement between us and our companies that they will move here. 50% of the staff will be here. But obviously the hope here is for companies to build a long-term presence in Buffalo. 43 North was created from Governor Cuomo's efforts to really improve Buffalo's economy and opportunities in Buffalo for our workforce here and to create jobs and wealth in our community. So the goal here is for an extended presence and perhaps to really set down roots. And we work really hard. We view it as our job as 43 North team members to make our city so attractive to startups that we don't need a piece of paper to require you to be here for a year, that you would want to be here. And many of our companies, more than half of them, decide to keep a presence in Buffalo. Sometimes that presence is small, and sometimes that presence is their headquarters. And I think Liz is a great example of that. I think you pretty much have your entire team here in Buffalo, and you're no longer required to be here. And in Joe's case, right, the largest employee base for ACV is in Buffalo. And that's because it makes sense from a business standpoint, as well as, you know, your heart is in the right place and you want to be here. So it's our job to really make those two things match up. And we put a lot of work on the business side of things, but also on the social side. So making sure our founders know where to go if they want to do yoga, or know which restaurants to go to, or can meet friends and make new friends while they're here. So we focus both on social and the business aspects of moving to Buffalo.
Great.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have for today. So without any further questions, if there are ones that we missed, we'll definitely shoot you an email. We'll try to get back to you with that answer. My email is lauren@43north.org if you have any questions for me. Brian's is the same thing, brian@43north.org. I want to thank our panelists for taking the time today and for taking all of our questions, and appreciate all of the participants taking the time to listen to us today. And hopefully you will all consider applying to 43 North.